You know, if you've ever looked at pictures from rural Thailand, you've probably seen them. Those really distinctive humped cattle just kind of grazing in the heat. Well, those are Zebu. And here's the thing. They're so much more than just part of the landscape. They are a living, breathing link to the past. And their story, it's completely tangled up with the rise of early civilization in that part of the world.
Right, so let's just dive straight into it, because that's the big mystery we're unpacking today. And it is a fantastic question. It takes us into archaeology, into genetics, into the very basics of what it even takes to build a society. I mean, really, how did this one type of cattle become so unbelievably important?
Okay, so to answer that huge question, we've got to start by meeting our main character. We need to understand the world it stepped into.
I want you to picture ancient Southeast Asia, thousands of years ago. You've got people making this massive shift from being hunter-gatherers to living a more settled, agricultural life. And that change? It creates this huge new need, a problem they have to solve. They need a source of power that's way beyond human muscle. You need help to clear land, to till fields, to haul stuff around. You absolutely need an animal partner.
Exactly. And not just any animal could do the job. We're talking about a climate that was hot, it was humid, and just full of tropical challenges. So, what was it about the Zebu that made it the perfect hire for this new farming gig?
Well, the answer is all in its biology. The Zebu is pretty much a cow that was practically engineered to thrive in the tropics.
So let's just get a clear definition here. What is a Zebu? It's defined by that unmistakable shoulder hump, and, this is the crucial part, an incredible ability to just handle hot climates where other kinds of cattle would completely fall apart.
Now what's really cool is when you put them side by side like this. See, most of us are probably more familiar with tauran cattle, the humpless kind you see all over Europe. But the Zebu is a totally different animal. It's perfectly adapted with that loose skin and its heat-loving nature for a tropical environment. They're just built different. And we're not talking about small things here. These are basically tropical superpowers. That hump, it's a fat storage unit for energy reserves. The loose skin acts like a built-in radiator, helping it shed heat. They even have better resistance to local parasites. I mean, they were literally built for success in Southeast Asia.
Okay, so we've got this perfectly adapted animal. But how did it even get to Thailand in the first place? Well, that brings us to the next chapter of our investigation, a journey across an ancient continent.
The general story that scientists have pieced together is that Zebu were first domesticated way back thousands of years ago in the Indian subcontinent. And from there, they didn't just magically show up in Thailand. No, they spread slowly, gradually, moving with people along ancient routes for trade and migration.
But hold on, because this is where the plot really thickens. It wasn't just a simple case of one group of people leading an animal from point A to point B. The evidence we have today suggests a much more interesting, much more local story was playing out.
Right, so if it wasn't just a straightforward journey, how in the world do we uncover the real story? Where do we find the evidence for this more complicated local history?
The answer, and this is so cool, comes from modern science digging into the ancient past. The clues are hiding in two main places, in old bones and in modern genetic code. Scientists use this really brilliant two-part approach. First, you have archaeologists digging up ancient sites and finding bones that physically prove cattle were there. And second, you have geneticists who analyze the DNA of cattle living in Thailand today, and they're hunting for these unique markers that tell a story of a distinct local evolution.
And this is a really important point to remember. This whole process isn't about finding one bone and then declaring the case closed. Scientific investigation, especially when you're peering this far into the past, is a slow, super careful process. And it's always open to being changed as new evidence pops up.
Okay, so we've covered the what, the where, and the how. We know what a Zebu is, and we have a good idea of how it got to Thailand and adapted. But that brings us right back to the biggest question of all. Why did it matter so much? Why was it so valuable?
The answer is that the Zebu wasn't just another animal. For an early farming society, it was the ultimate multi-tool. It was, honestly, a revolutionary piece of technology.
Maybe the best way to think about it is like this. The Zebu was a living engine. In a world where the only power source was human muscle, bringing in an animal that could pull, carry, and work, well, that just multiplied a community's power beyond anything they could have imagined.
And this just nails it. It's like having a tractor for plowing your fields, a truck for hauling goods, a walking food source, and a fertilizer factory all rolled into one living, breathing, self-replicating package. That is an absolute game changer.
And the benefits just kept stacking up. They gave you labor, they gave you food and materials, their manure was both fertilizer and fuel, and so importantly, they were a form of living wealth that you could store and grow. All of this created the foundation needed for bigger, more stable communities to form, the very bedrock of an economy.
So now that we've traced its biology, its long journey, and its incredible impact, what's the final verdict? What does this tangled local story really tell us in the end? Here's the most important takeaway. The zebu's story in Thailand isn't just about an animal being imported. It's this tangled, fascinating web. It starts with an animal perfectly built for the tropics, sure, but the real story is that deep local process of adaptation and integration, the part that's proven by those unique genetic markers that made it uniquely Thai. It didn't just show up. It was shaped by the land and by the people, and it became a cornerstone of their entire way of life.
And that leads us with this final, really powerful thought. The story of the Zebu reveals this hidden history of an entire civilization. It kind of makes you look at the world a little differently, doesn't it? And it makes you wonder, how many other epic histories are written in the biology and behavior of the animals we see every single day?